Hello, writer, and welcome back to my life. Writer Wednesday, the day where I give you my tips and advice on the art and business of writing and tell you how I do what I do as an indie author. Today's question comes to us from patron Kristen Stevens, who asks, how do you find an editor that you trust? Simple question, not the simplest answer in the universe. Finding an editor is definitely one of the most important decisions that you will make in your entire indie author publishing career. It's just vital. It's like choosing a business partner or a spouse. And as with decisions of similar importance, you should not rush into this. You should spend quite some time thinking about it and weighing the different factors and considering it. So the best place to start is to look for recommendations. You are, or you should be, part of a community of writers, whether it's an online community or an IRL community, but usually like an online community, right, with other indie authors all around the world. And the wonderful thing about editing is that it doesn't have to happen in person, so you can also work with editors all around the world because all that happens is you send them a Word document and they send it back. So start out by talking to authors and find the biggest and the best authors that you can find, right? Like, you want to talk to somebody who's been doing this a while, who has preferably published many books and has used the same editor for several of those books, if not all of them. Get their recommendations, find out who they work with, and then find out how fast those editors generally work and how much they charge for their work. Now, you should never ever skimp on editing. You should never go for the cheapest or the most cut-rate editor, because you will usually get cut-rate work. However, I do understand that we all start somewhere. We don't begin with giant budgets of thousands of dollars to edit our books. The first paid editor that I ever worked with charged like $400 per book. The problem was that I was not happy with the edits there at all and had to go and re-edit them all. So just keep things like that in mind. If an editor is not good, if they do not do good work, it is easy for you to tell. It is easy for you to find out. First of all, you can probably talk to other indie authors who have maybe worked with that person and find out what they're like to work with. And second of all, you can go and get examples of their books. Like, if somebody is offering to edit your books for $400 or $500 and you go and get a book that they have edited and it's filled with mistakes, don't hire that editor. I mean, they might catch some of your grammar and spelling mistakes and everything like that, but if you're going to have to re-edit it anyway, why not just do it right the first time or not do it at all, you know? And it is important to note that when you're looking for an editor, make sure that you specify what kind of editor you're looking for. The first editor that everybody should hire is a copy editor, and this is the person who finds your spelling, your grammar, your wrong words, that sort of thing. But if you ask somebody for an editor and they give you a developmental editor who helps you with your story structure and the big broad level things that you need to change in your story, you can still very easily publish a book with spelling and typos and grammar and all that sort of stuff that's just not good. So prioritize, right? And be very clear about what type of editor you are looking for. Okay, so after you've done this for a while, after you've looked around and shopped around and everything like that, then it's time to see if you can actually work with one of these editors. Now, any editor worth their salt will do an audition editing chapter for you. They will take the first chapter of your book, provided it's not one of these like 10,000 word chapters, and they will edit it. And then they'll send it back to you, and you can look at what they've changed and see if you agree with it, if you think that these changes are good, if you think that it makes your writing better, if they are catching your typos, if they are catching the mistakes that you're making. If you want to be super sneaky, you can also install purposefully little mistakes, little things that you know are things that you do, like little writing ticks and whatever, and especially if they're very subtle mistakes, and see if the editor catches it. I didn't do that, but I've definitely heard of people doing it, and seems like it could be really effective at finding somebody who would be good at dealing with your writing. And I suggest that you do that with multiple editors before you choose one. See whose work you enjoy and appreciate the most, and also who turns it around in the fastest time frame, who communicates to you the best about what needs to be fixed in your work. So fellow YouTuber and indie author Antoine Bandil just put out his first book, The Quiche. It's very, very good. I'm going to stick the cover right here and put a link in the description, by the way. I totally think you should go buy it if you like Afrofuturistic fantasy. I don't know if it counts as Afrofuturism. Anyway, it's a great book regardless. But he actually was in conversation with me during the creation of the book, during the editing process and everything like that, and he had the sort of editing experience, the good and the bad. He had found an editor who had been mentioned by a couple of different people and had hired him for a very, very low rate, and then kind of was like, hey, hey, so this editor is taking a little bit of time. Is that sort of normal? And I happened to know the editor, and I said, no, it is not normal. And if you want my opinion, don't work with this person. And he didn't. He found another editor, sampled his work with the person, and the communication was fast, and it was professional, and deadlines were hit. That's what you want. Even if you find a good editor for cheap, if you're going to stress yourself out so much if they take too long or miss their deadlines, if they are out of communication, if they're not emailing you and letting you know what's going on, it's not good. Don't work with people like that. There's plenty of professionals out there who want your money. So we mentioned budget and that sort of thing before already, but I just want to stress this. Again, you don't want to get cut rate editing, and a good copy editor is going to charge you at a minimum at least a cent a word, probably 2 cents a word, and up to 5 cents a word. I know that sounds expensive, and it kind of is, but you have to think about this in terms of a career, right? If you are starting a business that is a delivery service, you have to buy a van or whatever your delivery vehicle is. You have to buy that, and you have to fill it up with gas. Otherwise, you are not able to deliver the product you are supposed to deliver to your customers. Think about it this way. At 5 cents a word, the average Underrealm novel would cost $4,500 to edit, okay? But if you don't think that your book is going to make at least $5,000 in the short term and 10 and then more and more in the long term throughout the entire course of its life, which is your life, how do you think you're gonna build a business model on that? $5,000 seems like a whole lot when you're first starting out, when you're putting together your budget for your first book, and it is, but that book is going to exist forever, and it's going to earn, it should earn, if you're putting together a good business, it should earn quite a bit more than that. So keep that perspective in mind when you're looking at editing prices, and just don't skim. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to highlight here. You've shopped around, you've found some editors, you've sampled their work, you've found the one that you can afford and who seems to work well and is professional and has been recommended to you by other authors. It is now your duty as an author to remain as professional in your relationship with your editor as your editor is with you. Yes, you are hiring them. Yes, in terms of the whole freelance, work equation, you are the boss. But don't be a douche. Don't be a douchebag. Just don't. Please. Stay in contact with your editor. Let them know when projects are coming up. Let them know it as fast as you possibly can. Tell them, hey, this project is coming at this time, and then this project. When you are working through your schedule and figuring out how you're going to be releasing things, when you're figuring out how fast you need the manuscript turned around, let them know as quickly in advance as possible. And do not do the thing that far too many indie authors do, of expecting your editor to do more work than you are actually hiring them for. I have seen indie authors do this, and I have heard editors complain about indie authors who do this, where they get the manuscript done, they send it to the editor makes their edits and sends it back, and then the indie author goes through and makes all of the changes, all the fixes and everything like that, and then rewrites sections of the book and sends it back to the editor and says, oh, can you check these too for free? To which the correct response is, no, pay me. Which brings up a good point that, yes, you should contract out this work, you should make an exact agreement, this many words, this price, etc., etc. But then once that agreement has been made, don't expect more extra work for free. Editors are amazing people. They build our careers. They are the foundations of our careers. Don't mistreat them. Just don't be an asshole. But if you don't, if you are a professional, if you treat them well, your editor will be the springboard for you to become whatever it is that you have the potential to become as an indie author. You can't do it without them. So it's well worth the time and money investment finding and using the right editor for you. Thanks so much to Kristen for this week's question. It was a fun one to answer, and I hope everyone else found the answers helpful as well. A reminder that Kristen and my other $5 patrons on Patreon get these videos 2 weeks in advance of everyone else, and they are also the only ones who are allowed to request topics for me to cover in this series. So if that sounds interesting to you, check out my Patreon right over there. You can also see the entire Writer Wednesday video playlist right up there. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!